Emily Carter was 31 years old when her life changed inside Gate B-17 at Nashville International Airport at 5:14 in the morning. She was standing beside her grandmother, Margaret Carter, a 74-year-old retired school teacher who had spent her entire life building discipline, kindness, and quiet strength. Around them stood 11 family members, busy with phones, luggage, and boarding passes, as if this was just another normal family trip. Margaret held the handle of an old brown leather suitcase that had belonged to her late husband, a man she still spoke about as if he might walk back through the door any moment. Emily's father, David Carter, suddenly turned to his mother and said loudly, without lowering his voice, "Mom, I forgot to book your ticket. Just go home." The words fell into the air like something heavy dropping on glass. Everyone heard it. The gate agent heard it. Even strangers nearby turned to look. Margaret slowly opened her boarding folder, expecting a ticket, but there was nothing except a printed itinerary with no confirmation, no booking number, nothing real. She closed it quietly. She did not cry. She did not argue. She simply stood still, holding her suitcase like it was the only solid thing left in her world. What David did not know, what none of them understood in that moment, was that this single act would begin the collapse of everything he had been hiding for years. Not because Emily planned revenge, but because truth always rises when silence becomes too heavy. Years earlier, Margaret had lived a simple life in Tennessee, teaching third grade for more than 3 decades, raising David and his sister Nicole alone after her husband passed away. She never remarried, never complained, and never stopped saving every spare dollar she could. She lived in the same house she bought in 1981, a small ranch home filled with old memories, quiet routines, and fading furniture she refused to replace. On the outside she appeared fine, but inside the house things had slowly started to decay: a leaking faucet, a weak porch railing, a thermostat set too low in winter, and groceries that became fewer each month. When Emily asked her father about it, he always said, "Mom is fine, she just doesn't like spending money." Emily believed him because he was her father and because trust often hides the truth in plain sight. The idea for a Europe trip had come at Thanksgiving. David stood at the table announcing a family journey to Rome, Paris, Florence, and London. Everyone was excited. Margaret quietly said she had never left the country before. When David explained the cost, he said each household would contribute equally, including Margaret. She hesitated only briefly before agreeing, saying, "If not now, then when?" She paid $30,000 from her retirement savings without hesitation. That money represented decades of sacrifice, skipped vacations, and careful living. She even began packing weeks early, using her late husband's old suitcase, treating the trip like a dream finally coming true. But at the airport, that dream shattered in seconds. When David told her to go home, no one defended her. No one stepped forward. Emily looked at her grandmother standing alone under harsh airport lights and made a decision. She tore her boarding pass in half and said, "I'm going with her." Silence followed them as they left the airport together. Margaret did not speak until they reached the car. That night, Emily stayed in her grandmother's house and noticed things she had ignored for years. An almost empty fridge, medicine bottles switched to cheaper versions, and mail that was no longer being opened. A neighbor later revealed that David had been collecting Margaret's mail for years and controlling her financial information. Something felt deeply wrong. Emily contacted the bank the next day but was told she had no authorization. That was the first clear sign that her grandmother's life was not what it appeared to be. In a filing cabinet, Emily discovered a power of attorney document giving David full control over all of Margaret's finances and decisions. Margaret confirmed she had signed it years ago, trusting her son completely. Over time, Emily uncovered something far worse. Bank statements showed repeated withdrawals over 5 years, totaling more than $140,000. Money had been quietly moved, redirected, and used without Margaret's knowledge. Even the Europe trip funds had been taken from her account. Emily also discovered an email where David had written, "Don't book Mom's ticket. She won't even notice the money is gone. It was no accident. It was planned exclusion. Emily contacted an elder law attorney named Michael Thompson, who confirmed financial exploitation. Legal action began immediately. Accounts were frozen. Investigations opened. Evidence was collected. When David returned from Europe and learned his access was suspended, he was furious and confused. But when confronted with documents, emails, and bank records, the truth became impossible to deny. He had not only controlled his mother's money, he had systematically drained it while isolating her from awareness. The family was called together in Margaret's dining room, the same place where holidays used to be celebrated. Every document was laid out: bank records, emails, legal filings, and transaction histories. Margaret finally spoke clearly, without anger but with deep pain. She said she trusted her son because a mother should not have to question her own child. But she also said something stronger: she had stopped trusting him the moment he left her at the airport. She made it clear she did not want revenge or prison. She wanted her independence, her dignity, and her life restored. The legal process moved quickly. Power of attorney was revoked. Accounts were returned to her control. Money was ordered to be repaid. The court recognized financial abuse of an elderly adult. David was held responsible for repayment over time, and the family was forced to face the consequences of years of hidden actions. Nicole was also required to return money she had received. No one walked away untouched. In the aftermath, relationships collapsed. Some family members stopped speaking. Others tried to justify what had happened. But Margaret slowly rebuilt her life. Her house was repaired, her finances restored, and her routine returned. She began going out again, meeting friends, and living with a sense of freedom she had lost without realizing. Emily continued visiting every weekend. One day, Margaret said something simple but powerful: "I feel lighter now, not because life is perfect, but because truth has weight, and I am no longer carrying someone else's lies." Emily realized that love in a family is not just about loyalty, but about responsibility, honesty, and protecting those who once protected you. A relationship built on control eventually breaks, but a relationship rebuilt on truth can heal. The lesson stayed with them both: never ignore changes in someone's life, never assume silence means safety, and never allow trust to replace awareness. Because sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who need accountability the most.